Hey folks, this is Kalani. Every new World of Warcraft patch brings us a wide variety of content, from new encounters in dungeons and raids to work our way through, to new pets to collect and battle with. Something I always look forward to with a new patch is the new mounts we'll be able to add to our collections. Patch 8.3 is no different. There's a mini menagerie of mounts that are being introduced with the last patch of Battle for Azeroth, so let's have a quick look through them and find out exactly what you'll have to do to get your hands on them. The first mount we have on offer is the Uncorrupted Voidwing. I think it's quite fitting that we get a Void Dragon mount in the Void patch, wouldn't you say? It's a shame that it's just a Void patch and not a Void expansion, but hey, that might be in the cards after we visit the Shadowlands. The mounts share the same model as the Void Dragon that we've seen once or twice so far in Battle for Azeroth, and Vexiona will return in the Nile Otha raid. She's the 8th boss in the Dungeon Journal, if I'm not mistaken. Now, although the model is more or less the same, it looks like this mount probably won't be a simple drop from the dragon boss in the raid. From what we've seen, this could very well be the next ahead of the curve mount for this expansion. It's been very typical for the last couple of expansions for the very last raid tier to include a special mount that comes from killing the last boss on heroic difficulty. For Warlords of Draenor, you got the Moose for killing Archimonde, and in Legion you got the Arcane Raven Bird thing for killing Argus. The Uncorrupted Voidwing looks like it's going to be the next one on the list. Don't worry too much if you aren't an AOTC raider though. There have always been a lot of community-driven kill groups specifically tailored to getting as many people as possible the shiny AOTC mounts. Hopefully that will happen again, assuming the Voidwing is an AOTC mount. That could change by the time this goes live, but right now it's the only mount that fits the bill. Next up, we have the Nile Otha Allseer. You've probably seen this mount previewed before. It was one of the first mounts to be data mined for this patch, but now we know for sure where it comes from. To get your hands on this delightfully corrupted jellyfish-looking abomination, you'll need to take down N'Zoth the Corruptor on Mythic difficulty. That would make this mount the reward for completing the Cutting Edge achievement for the next raid tier. That is going to be significantly harder when compared to AOTC, so this one is going to be a bit more prestigious, I guess. I'm actually kind of glad. This isn't a mount I would want to see all over Orgrimmar, if you know what I mean. Those eyes would creep me out for sure. It's a fitting mount to come from Cutting Edge N'Zoth though. There is another mount that comes from the Nile Otha raid, the Wriggling Parasite. Wonderful. Doesn't that just sound dandy? There's quite a few of these void worm mounts and they look like another form of the various wormy mounts we've seen before. Just this time they have a nasty maw which looks like it's siphoning off dark energy. There's also suckers all along the underneath and a large sucker on the underside of the tail, just for good measure, you know, just in case. This mount comes from the Glory of the Nile Otha Raider achievement, so it shouldn't be too hard to get your hands on as long as you have a dedicated group willing to run through all of the raid achievements. I did say we have a few of these worms, there's actually another 3 to be exact. This next one is the Awakened Mind Borer. The only real difference between these mounts is the colour, but if you really want a pale grey-blue version that has a red underbelly, you'll need to complete the Battle for Azeroth Keystone Master Season 4 achievement. That was a bit of a mouthful. Every season of BfA has had an achievement for Keystone Master, just this time around you actually get some collectible rewards. Keystone Master requires you to finish all of the Battle for Azeroth dungeons on a plus 15 key or higher within the time limit. Definitely something you'll have to push for, but thankfully the new Mythic Plus affix in Season 4 looks like it's going to be quite fun, so there should be plenty of people to group up with. Next up is the Black Serpent of N'Zoth. Not really a surprise that this mount has a darker coloration to it from the name, but this variation comes from an achievement called Through the Depths of Visions. To complete that achievement, you'll need to delve deep into the horrific visions of N'Zoth and complete a bunch of minor achievements like finishing a vision of Orgrimmar or finishing a vision of Orgrimmar after completing all bonus objectives. It's a meta achievement related to the horrific visions, so expect to jump through quite a few hoops before you can get your hands on this one. And the last one we have is the Male Muncher. If you've ever lost some gold or crafting materials while sending them over to an alt, well, now you know why. It seems this mischievous little chappie has been worming its way through the Postmaster's network, munching on whatever mail it could find along the way. The drop location seems to be a mob with the same model and the same name. You should be able to find the Male Muncher somewhere in a horrific vision. Maybe it's a rare spawn, or maybe you have to trigger it in some other special way. Just be on the lookout for this worm while trying to stay sane, and you might bag yourself a free mount. Alrighty, let's move on to some other mounts. There are 2 new reputations coming in patch 8.3 and 2 new mounts that you can buy from them. Over in Uldum you can find the Uldum Accord. If you get to Exalted with this band of sand dwellers, you can buy yourself the Waste Wander Sky Terror. Don't worry, you're not the only one. I giggled when I first saw it too. Go ahead, I'll give you a few seconds, get it out of your system. Alright, we all good? Cool. The Waste Wander Sky Terror will set you back about 20,000 gold right now on the PTR. We might actually have some rep mounts that everyone can afford. The grind to Exalted should be enough in my opinion, not get to Exalted and farm up a couple 100,000 gold. If you've ever wanted to ride around on a condor or any other buzzard type of bird, the Uldum Accord has got you covered in patch 8.3. The other new rep is the Rajani. They've set up their base in the Vale of Eternal Blossoms. With some of the zones being reused in patch 8.3, it gives the dev team another chance to bring back some other mount models and have them actually make sense. The mount from the Rajani reputation is the Rajani War Serpent. You might not like the idea of old mount models being reused, but the Cloud Serpent is one of my personal favourites, and despite almost every other colour being available for this mount, a white Cloud Serpent was very rare. The only model that comes close is the PvP Cloud Serpent from what I understand, and by design that one is only handed out to a few people. The Rajani War Serpent fills in that colour gap and it looks fantastic in my opinion. It looks like you won't have to grind any reputation with them, but you will need to acquire a pristine Cloud Serpent scale. That could come from a rare in the Vale of Eternal Blossoms, or maybe just a random drop off the Cloud Serpents in the zone. I'm actually okay with some of this patch harkening back to older zones, older stories, and older mounts. It's an interesting change of pace. Let's see how it pans out. We won't be staying on Azeroth much longer anyway. There's another Cloud Serpent coming in patch 8.3, another whitish one as well. The Ivory Cloud Serpent comes from the Ivory Cloud Serpent in the Vale of Eternal Blossoms. I guess that means this will be a rare drop from a rare spawn. While the Rajani mount was a Thundering Cloud Serpent, this one is just the plain colour without any special effects. Though it looks like this one isn't just white or ivory, it's got a lot of pink through the back half of the body and the tail. It's also dropping little pink sparklies everywhere. This one did used to have something about cherry blossoms before it was renamed I think, but now it's just the Ivory Cloud Serpent. Cloud Serpents aren't the only model that we'll see return in 8.3, this next mount is called Xin Lao, and if you've played during Mr. Pandaria you probably recognise the model. It's kind of a Mogu dog. The Stone Quillen mounts were definitely one of the more interesting mounts in the MOP expansion. I'm not a great fan personally, but if this is the look you're into then there's another mount available. This one comes from a rare spawn in the Vale of Eternal Blossoms, probably during a Mogu assault, but we'll have to wait and see to be sure. There is a rare spawn mount for Uldum as well. The Drake of the Four Winds should look very familiar for anyone who played a lot during Cataclysm. This is again one of my favourite dragon mount models. You may have seen me flying around on it in various videos, so I'm pretty happy to get another one. By the looks of things you'll have to kill Ishkar of the Four Winds in the Uldum zone to have a chance at looting this particular mount, so if you want to collect them all, patch 8.3 will have some rare spawns that you'll need to camp. It's not all rehashes though. The Wicked Swarmer mount is a new model in patch 8.3 and it looks like we're finally getting a flying squid Karaji bug mount thing, because that's what we were asking for all this time, right? I think it looks pretty cool for what it is. It's got some nasty Void vibes going on, so it fits in rather well. To get the Wicked Swarmer, you'll have to talk to Rathian in the Chamber of the Heart. Don't ask me why Rathian has a collection of these nasty bugs, but he's willing to part with one for 100,000 corrupted mementos. If you haven't been paying too much attention to the PTR, you might not really know how much that is. Trust me when I tell you that it's a lot. This isn't a mount you'll be getting very quickly, and you'll also have to choose between the mount and putting 4 sockets onto your gear. So saving up for this mount isn't just going to take a long time, it's also going to take a lot of willpower. 4 sockets sure is tempting. If you're itching to get your hands on this mount but don't fancy waiting that long, you can also get a recolor called the Obedient Drone. The colours are swapped on this one, so if you want more purple, well, here you go. The Obedient Drone comes from the Ready to Fly quest in Uldum. We don't have too many details about this just yet, but from what data mining we do have, it looks like this is going to be another Raise Your Own Mount questline. There's a new faction relating to an Akia hatchling, just like how the B mount had its own faction, so expect to pick up a baby one of these mounts mount somewhere and teach it all of the ropes before it's big enough to ride around on. With the Uldum Zone being a point of interest for both the Horde and the Alliance, I would assume both factions would have access to this particular rep grind mount, instead of it being faction specific like the B mount. And then we may have saved the best for last here, there's also a few alpaca mounts coming in patch 8.3. The Springfur Alpaca comes from a quest in Uldum called Alpaca It In. Good one, Blizzard. I haven't managed to find anything about this quest just yet, so it could be anything from a one-time quest, maybe another Razor Mount questline, or an item that drops from somewhere to start the questline. We just know it's in Uldum, and it's a guaranteed drop from that quest. There is also an elusive quick hoof alpaca. This one is a darker colour, just in case that matches your Vulpera's transmog a bit better. Let's be honest, the main reason most of you are excited is because not only do you get to play as a Vulpera next patch, but you also get to collect up a few alpacas to create your own travelling caravan. It's what all the cool Vulpera are doing these days. Again, we don't really know where this one comes from, but it is marked as coming from Vol'dun, so we may be heading back to older zones of BfA for at least 2 of these mounts. And with this being an elusive quick hoof, I wonder if it will be tied to some form of secret. But don't worry too much about not knowing the sources for these 2 mounts. There's also another alpaca mount called Molly. Yes, we can collect Molly and keep her in our stables forevermore. We actually know where this one comes from too, though it's a bit odd. This mount is tied to the loot table of one of the old world bosses in Vol'dun. Doomgorger Crowlock will have this mount on its drop table after patch 8.3 goes live. That's the big undead dinosaur. I kind of hope that's temporary though, because world bosses are a terrible source of mounts. Just look at the Shah of Anger from Mists of Pandaria. People are still farming that to this day. The world bosses in BfA rotate pretty slowly too, so if Molly has a low drop rate and we only see Doomgorger Crowlock once in a blue moon, getting your hands on this version of the alpaca might actually be way harder than the other 2, even though we don't have any idea where the others come from. But hey, at least there are alpaca mounts in the game in patch 8.3, that's got to count for something, right? And that's all of the new mounts we have solid information on right now for patch 8.3. We might see more mounts added into the patch later on in the PTR cycle, though I kind of doubt it. Everything seems pretty much done, just more polishing, tweaking of numbers, and waiting for a good time to release at this point. The end of the year is always a bit wonky for releasing any new content. Thanksgiving is towards the end of November, and then December ties up a lot of time with holidays and the new year. It's definitely a good idea to wait until all of that is out of the way to launch anything major, which is what they're doing with patch 8.3. But that's it for this video. Which new mount in 8.3 is your favourite so far? How do you feel about older mount models making a return like the Cloud Serpents? Leave all your thoughts in the comments section below. A big thank you to all of our supporters over on Patreon. You can see their names floating by on screen. If you want to join these lovely guys and gals, you can find a link in the description below. Remember to leave a like just below the video before you leave. If you want to see more, make sure to subscribe. But apart from that, thanks for watching folks, good luck and have fun, and as always I will see you next time.